hello everyone, and thank you for joining us tonight for our Meet the Maker series featuring ill-gotten games with Arian, Jeremy, Laurel, and our young guest, Addie, as well. My name is Megan, and I'm the Programs and Exhibit Supervisor at the Arlington Heights Memorial Library, and I'm joined tonight with my colleagues, Chris and Emily. And with that, I'm going to go ahead and pass it on over to Chris.
All right, well, thank you so much, Megan. As Megan said, my name is Chris Kruger. I am the Makerspace Branch Assistant Manager here at the library. And before we get started today, I just wanted to quickly touch on what a makerspace is. If you're new to the concept, if you haven't had a chance to visit one of the makerspaces at other local libraries, what is a makerspace? And to me, one of the most important parts of a makerspace is the fact that it's a collaborative workspace. It's a place to spread out and work on a project if you don't have that kind of space at home. It's a place to use tools and equipment that you might not normally have access to. And this is kind of the most important or exciting part for me, is that it's a place to network and meet fellow makers in your community. And it's, of course, a place to learn new skills and talents. Now at the library's makerspace, we're gonna have some really exciting technology and equipment. We're gonna have things available for things like laser cutting, 3D printing, and even a really cool computer-controlled embroidery machine. We're also gonna have classes on art, cooking, sewing, and really a lot more. So the makerspace is currently under construction and is scheduled to be opening later this summer. If you'd like more information, you can check out the makerspace page on our website at ahml.info/makerspace, and I'll drop a link to that in the chat in just a second. Now, before we get started today, I just want to talk a little bit about our Meet the Maker program series. In this series, we've been exploring different ideas and interpretations of what making is. We've been really fortunate so far to have makers from across the Chicagoland area and now nationwide who want to share their passions and interests with us. And I think this series is special because it lets us connect with a really interesting group of makers with a really diverse skill set. From artists to designers, craftsmen, and hobbyists, the maker community really covers such a wide variety of talents and skill sets. So far, the makers in this series have covered mediums like textiles, screen printing, beadwork, glass art, and more. And I'm really excited to see what else we'll get to see in the series as we continue throughout the year. I'll just say that if any of those things were interesting to you, please check out our Meet the Makers page on our site. I think every maker we've had so far has posted a YouTube video or Instagram live recording of their session, as well as a lot of really great resources that they recommend checking out if you're interested in what they're working on. So I hope you find inspiration for your own projects while learning all different techniques in this series. And I just want to remind everyone to please ask questions if you have them in today's program. We're really, really fortunate to have access to talented makers in this series. And now is a great time to ask questions and learn about their processes. So today's guest is Ill-Gotten Games. Ill-Gotten Games has been taking print and play to a new dimension. They've been making tabletop gaming inclusive, creative, and fun, innovating with their own games and incorporating accessible 3D printing technology. Arian Dutchmogul Croft has been an artist, designer, developer, and entrepreneur since childhood. Having cycled through traditional tabletop mini painting, mixed media, junk building, and many other artistic expressions, he discovered 3D design in 2011 and has not looked back. By designing his own game pieces, printing them himself on his MakerBot Replicator 2, and working at a record pace, he is now changing the way 3D printing influences game design internationally. Jeremy Larsen is a Renaissance man, creating art through woodworking, music, bike maintenance, and exceptional parenting. Once Arian awakened the long dormant gaming beast within Jeremy, he embraced the 3D design, the painting, the 3D printing, and all the game developments in between. So before we get started, I just want to say I have been following this group for almost a decade now on social media. And I think it'd be hard pressed to find a more creative and talented group in the 3D printing community. The amount of consistently amazing content they've been putting out for, again, almost a whole decade now is just terrific. They're a big part of the community. And I think we're extremely fortunate to have them with us today. With that all being said, I'm going to turn it over to you guys. So please take it away.
Hey, thanks so much. Appreciate it, Chris.
It's tough to follow that.
Yeah,
we gotta deliver now.
Really gotta deliver. Okay. So we're Ill-Gotten Games. I guess I'll put up the slideshow. Yeah, here. We'll get it started here. Yeah, Ill-Gotten Games. We make 3D printable miniatures, terrain, toys, all kinds of things. Most of it for tabletop gaming. We started back. I kind of got into it late 2011, I think, and then around 2012, like early 2012, we kind of solidified it into a business. And Pocket Tactics, that was our first 3D printable board game, was one of the first things that kind of put us on the map back in like mid 2012. And we actually just released a new edition of that last year, late last year.
Yeah,
Yeah,
in
yeah.
well, November, I think.
Yeah. So, oh, sorry. Oh, okay. All right. So yeah, I'm Arian. I'm Arian Croft. I'm also known as Dutchmogul on Thingiverse. Specifically, that's where I kind of got my start sharing things before we ever kind of turned this into a commercial venture. And this is of course Jeremy.
I print stuff.
Yeah, he runs how many printers do we have?
I think we have 13 in the basement.
13 printers. We have a basement workshop set up, and yeah, various types of, we got FDM printers, resin printers.
All of that.
We have a experimental color printer, which didn't go places, but it did some stuff for us. And
we were lucky enough to be a part of that sort of venture, and that printer is actually a pretty good FDM printer. It's
a great FDM printer. Yeah, I still use it. So yeah, we've had a chance at trying out a lot of different kind of technologies over the past I guess almost decade, which is weird to think, but yeah, I got my first printer in early 2012. Yeah, that was a MakerBot Replicator 1. Yeah, back when they still had the wood frame.
Back when they were still made in Brooklyn.
Yeah. So
Laurel.
Here down there we have Laurel and Addie, and they do various things at the company as well. Laurel's our kind of our outreach person. She really kind of keeps things in line for us, and
she reminded us that we have a meeting in 5 minutes.
Right. Yeah. That today, for example, we were playing Dark Souls, and then like, oh yeah, we gotta do some work. So I guess as we go, we'll just open it up to questions. Is that right?
Yeah, I think at any time, if anybody has any questions, just feel free
to drop it in. Yeah. Otherwise, we'll just keep talking and go through the slides.
Get to the chat.
I'll show you.
That I don't know. Oh yeah, and Adeline Larsen, right there. She's waving. Yep, she wanted an introduction. She's got it.
An early game designer at 8 years old.
Yeah, she is as old as our first printer, right?
Yeah.
I think they arrived in close proximity.
Well, Fred's about 8 months younger.
Okay.
Older. 8 months old.
Yeah. We've actually just retired that first printer we got, the Replicator 1. It was printing like right up until a few months ago.
Well, and great stuff. The Replicator 1. I mean, I think we put 7,000 hours on it before the box came out of True, and I had to retire it, but great printer. Yeah,
it was really great. Nowadays we've sort of transitioned to, we tried a lot of different models, but it's kind of hard to go wrong with the kind of mainstream printers. I think,
I mean, for me, the Prusa Mini, bang for your buck is sort of my go-to now.
Yeah.
We'll click the next slide.
Oh, okay. All right. So moving on. Okay, so this is our office. We didn't always have an office, but I think this is like 3 years old at this point.
Well, this is our third office, and the first office we got,
I
think 3 years ago.
And it was like a closet.
No.
We had a table.
It was like 200 square feet ish, and we had a table.
Yeah.
And that's what was in there.
But now we have this, which is a little bigger and lets us, in less pandemic-y times, set up games and events and do some printing here. I have a Prusa Mini, which I actually use here. It's a prototype printer.
It's over Addie's shoulder.
Oh yeah, there's a way to turn the cursor on too, right? Yeah, I can't remember how to do it. Wait, maybe it's this thing. There we go, laser pointer. Yeah, so up here you can see we got our little Prusa Mini. It doesn't take up a lot of room, which is great. These are.
We got a question in the chat. Hooray!
Oh, okay.
We're up in Bellingham, Washington, which is north of Seattle.
Yeah, it's kind of almost smack dab in between Seattle and Vancouver, BC. And so up here you can see a bunch of our designs. you got your various miniatures and Viking ships and monsters and dinosaurs, and although that's not technically ours, but it's there. And these are shelving units, which we make called Valhalla. They're like for miniature display, and they're kind of modular, fit together. It's something we're currently working on as our next campaign is a new series of those. Yeah, and we use these tables for things like wargaming, RPGs, that kind of thing. And yeah, it's a pretty nice, clean space, and yeah, really happy here. It really works out well.
We can leave stuff on the table without fear of cats.
That's really nice. One of the nice things about having an office as a game player, as a gamer, is just not having to have,
I mean, my cats are wonderful and I love them, but I don't want them knocking minis over.
Yeah. Okay. So this is the stuff we make: miniatures, wargaming terrain. That's like, that's the majority of our 3D output.
Yeah.
We design our own tabletop RPGs, our own wargame systems, which are actually kind of interlinked. That's kind of the whole goal of what we've been doing. But really, the designs we make for 3D printing and wargaming and all that, or for wargaming and RPGs, it's kind of mostly for any system use. So if you play like Dungeons and Dragons or Warhammer or something like Frostgrave or Stargrave, whatever, you have objects you can use for those games.
Yeah, I mean, as far as I'm concerned, once somebody buys our model, it's sort of theirs.
Yeah, whatever you do with it.
Whatever game you want to play with it, rock on.
And we make board games, and that's one of the things that really got me initially rolling on 3D design was just the ability to quickly prototype a wholly new board game with plastic parts. It was pretty revolutionary. Yeah. At the time, and Pocket Tactics is our big game, and I'll get a picture of that up at some point here.
I think we do.
Yeah, we got one on the slide. But we've done a few over the years. A lot of them are free or open source on printable on Thingiverse. This is one of our models, the People Eater. It's like a purple People Eater imaginary monster that subs in for big chunky wargaming unit.
It's an ogre.
Yeah, exactly. And there's a printed and painted version right there.
And that specific one was printed on a resin printer. I think it was printed on a Form 2.
Form 2. That was a Form 2 print. Yeah, definitely. Yeah. Yeah, we have resin printers. What do we have? We have the Form 2 and Form 3.
Well, we started with the Wanhao D7.
Wanhao D7. Yeah.
And it was great. It was a great little printer. But the Formlab stuff is. I'm so lucky that we can have one. It's amazing.
And this is a larger model, actually. Grab a small one here.
So yeah, we started with the Wanhao D7, and then we moved to we actually have a Form 3. I know, spoiled rotten. But then we've also recently got an Anycubic.
There's a little Viking
to make sure that everything prints.
Okay. So. Yeah. Okay. So Pocket Tactics, that was our big board game that, which was actually very small. That sort of got us put on the map pretty early on. We shared it to Thingiverse. That was the first edition
in 2012.
2012, and the idea was something that you could print relatively quickly and toss in a bag and kind of take and play anywhere. And it sort of runs by. It's sort of a strategy battle game, meant for 2 players, but you can add as many more players as you need. And the little world is built with hex tiles, so you draw from the bag and kind of create a different formation every time. And then the miniatures, which are, if anyone knows miniature terms, they're like around 15 millimeter scale.
Yeah. Well, I think the first ones were 18.
I think the very first ones were 15, and we kind of.
Oh, and then we moved to 18.
Yeah, because we needed to sort of scale things up to meet.
Yeah,
printing demands of the time, but nowadays, not really a problem. So,
I mean,
I like keeping things in a uniform scale, especially something that people use. Like there's a pretty healthy market, like a community for 15 millimeter players, and it's nice to be able to take these board game pieces and say, okay, well, I want to use them for other games as well, and use them with my other miniatures, and they're just, there they are. They're perfectly skilled to work with those as well. So we kickstarted this. Technically, I mean, it's sort of a redo. Like a 6. It would be like a 6 edition,
Yeah,
more or less, but it's our commercial edition.
It's the commercial edition,
Which
that's
we
right. I mean,
kickstarted recently. There's a free version though, which uses meeples instead of like miniature versions, which is out there. Yeah, I mean it's been a lot of fun. I like developing for board games. It's not something I do all the time, but it's something I like to do more of.
it's fun to sort of give yourself a constraint, like give a limit to what you're designing.
Sure. Yeah. And again, like the nice thing about making board game pieces is the most accessible programs, which we'll get into in a little bit, like Tinkercad, which probably a lot of people have heard of by now. You can really do all kinds of great board game pieces with that. And
it's deceptively powerful.
Yeah. It's really easy to get into and start using. All right, so businessy stuff. So okay, open source community. A lot of our designs are free. We continue to release free stuff.
Say probably 90% of everything we've done.
Everything we've ever done, yeah, probably about that. And a lot of it's just kind of open source. We use the Creative Commons for various different licenses. Depends on the object.
Yeah, I think there's very little that we're kind of like covetous about.
Yeah, not a lot. Yeah, we've got quarterly crowdfunding campaigns ish. Every few months we'll do a Kickstarter campaign, and that's probably primarily where we get our income. I think that between that and Patreon, which is the monthly support.
Although My Mini Factory is coming up huge.
Yeah, we're starting to find that. Yeah, we're starting to find that like sales from online storefronts like My Mini Factory or Cults or what's another one.
Yeah, more on drive-through as well.
Drive-through RPG. Yeah, that's you can make something, and generally what we'll do is we'll kickstart it, and people who want to just do the one-time backing thing will back it there, and they'll get the objects. But after that is processed, it'll actually end up going to our Patreon supporters who get our whole back catalog, depending on the level they're pledged at.
Can I contribute something really quick?
Sure. Yeah.
And to be clear, we actually don't sell any physical items.
Right.
And so when we talk about these things, what we are selling, what we are kickstarting is the systems. So we would generate a PDF of a game system, or more frequently, especially with the Patreon supporting, would be the actual file of a printable object, so that people, now that 3D printing is becoming more and more mainstream, can take it to their local makerspace, shout out, or can use their basement printer and print up batches and batches of Pocket Tactics to play with their friends, models, etc. But they're printing it themselves, so we're not actually sending out. We did that a couple of times, and the whole postal system and dealing with packaging and all that, it became a bit much.
We mostly do that with books. We'll still do that with books, but but 3D printing, there are people who make it work, where they have like a bank of printers and they make stuff and they sell it, and that's great.
But I'm not a logistics guy.
Yeah, and I personally couldn't see designing and doing that.
No,
it's just like designing takes all my energy as it is. Yeah. But it's really cool that. So at one of the levels of our Patreon, we offer a seller's license. So pretty much those people can print anything we make and then sell as much of it as they want. And that's great. I like that there's another way that our stuff is getting out there.
And then we're also able to sort of cross advertise with those people. Those people are licensed sellers, so they can have a logo of ours on their Etsy site or their website, and then we also post them on our website as somebody who is licensed to sell our designs. And so there's that cross collaboration, and it goes back to that sort of community feel that we really enjoyed about the open source community when we first got started almost 10 years ago as well.
I mean, there are people who print, and they're better printers than me, and I like to hear what they have to say as far as the feedback goes for printability of our stuff. I mean, I feel like we do a pretty good job of like making sure everything we make prints, but some people have given us pretty good feedback.
So yeah, that's something. What we actually sell the most of is STL files, is what they're called, and that stands for
Standard triangle
standard
language.
triangle
It
language.
was pioneered sometime in the 80s.
Yeah.
3MF is better.
Yeah, there's a new file type which translates to 3D printing, which is better, but nobody uses it.
But that's a whole thing.
So if you get into like the 3D printing tabletop community, which is just like been exploding lately,
Yeah.
people just shorthand to STL for everything, and so you'll kind of see STL everywhere. So if you're ever wondering what that means, that just means a printable file. Yeah. Okay. Let's see what we got next here. So design software. We use a lot of Tinkercad, and that's a program that I'll pull up when we're done. That's a free web-based program where you can basically, it's like playing with building blocks, and then some advanced meta features beyond that. But you can do a lot with just that program. You can do everything with just that program, depending on what you wanted to do. We use a little bit of Blender. I wouldn't say that it's vital to our workflow necessarily, but there's some aspects of Blender that we use. And if you know Blender, which I don't, I wish I was really fluent in Blender, but it's also a free program, super powerful. It's just really, there's a lot.
It's like piloting an F-18, right?
Yeah, compared to like driving a car or something. To me, that's been my version. But I've learned to do quite a bit with it over the years, and it's great. It's a great program.
I can inflate and reduce.
So then there's pixelogic stuff. So Zbrush is what we've been using mostly lately, but we used to use Sculptris, which is a free program that they offered, and I believe it's not offered any longer.
No, but they do offer ZBrush Core Mini.
Yeah, ZBrush Core Mini. And if you can find Sculptris, or if you have a copy of it, it's a great way to get organic sculpting.
I love Sculptris.
Yeah,
it's a wonderful program.
Yeah, it's fantastic. And then Nomad. So this is
it's on the iPad.
Yeah, it's if you want to sculpt on the iPad, it's actually really powerful.
Yeah, I mean, I would put it probably somewhere in between like Sculptris and ZBrush as far as its abilities and complexity. But its Z remesher is on par, I think, with ZBrush. It's great.
What is a Z remesher?
So when you're designing a model and it starts to get all tessellated and triangly, you can select it and hit Z remesh, and it'll redistribute the triangles.
There you go. All right.
Now, to be clear too, these guys are completely self-taught, and it was simply out of need, because they wanted to be creating their own game pieces, and this was an inexpensive way for them to be able to do it, rather than literally chopping up sprues for game from other games, which they still do.
It wasn't just that. It was just I wanted to have my own concepts out there, and to really fully do that. When I first got into this, it was initially I was really excited about the prospect of 3D printing for tabletop gaming, but I thought I'm gonna have to hire like a designer. So I talked to the few friends I have who do that for a living. And they're all super busy or doing work for car commercials or something. No time for me, obviously. So I kind of dug around.
Go roll your dice.
Yeah, I think one of the first places I looked was Shapeways, which is a print-on-demand service, pretty big one. Had like a list of design programs that they would link to, and Tinkercad was the first one I got into, and it was just life-changing for me. I'd never done 3D design. I was in my early 30s at that point, and it just within a month I was making stuff, and is it as good as the stuff I make now? No, but it was like I did it, and
it was representational, and
it worked enough that people wanted to print it. So it sort of just snowballed, and yeah, I mean it's actually a lot more accessible, I think, than a lot of people realize.
In fact, I think it's so accessible now that it's kind of like it's overwhelming. Like there's all this stuff, all this free stuff out there, and it's all really good.
Yeah.
But it's like, where do I even start?
Right. Yeah. Well, I think a good place to start out here.
Oh yeah, those are some of the printers that we use. I use a lot of MakerBot stuff. We have a couple of Formlabs machines, and we just got last year a couple of Prusa Minis, and they're great. I mean, there's plenty of great brands out there, but those are the ones that we use. And
we have other machines from what, Creality?
Yeah, we have a CR10 S5. We've got, although I think it's on the next slide, actually.
Is that right?
I think so.
Well, it's good. There we go.
Oh yeah. Look.
Yeah. This is our print bay. Yeah.
So let's see, starting from the upper left, you see a few MakerBot 2s, 2Xs, and an old Rep 1, which has since passed on.
Yeah.
What else is up there? We got, that little Delta, the CNC Orion, which is, the print quality is decent, but it is like, I've had it for, I think, 5 years, and I've leveled it once.
Ah, wow.
Like, right. And
leveling, you have to, generally when you're 3D printing, you have to kind of adjust the plate so that it's sort
Sure.
of leveled straight for use.
It's technically called tramming if you want to get really obnoxious about it. And then let's see, next to the Orion is our little Prusa, and then we got our 2 Formlabs machines on the rack. There's a Form 2 and a Form 3.
Mm-hmm.
And then
those are kind of our MVPs.
They're
for when you're making miniatures, you can do it on FDM.
Sure.
But if you want really high quality, like store-bought, kind of like you pulled it out of a package, resin is the way to.
Yeah, SLA or DLP is
What is FDM?
Oh, FDM means
it's the
fused deposited material. It's taking plastic and putting it through a tube and making the tube move around in very specific and precise ways to build it from the bottom up.
Right.
Whereas an SLA or DLP printer does it using a photosensitive light and it pulls it up out of a vat of resin as it cures. Really fantastic. I mean, it's magic as far as I'm concerned.
It's amazing. So here you can see these are some of our terrain prints. We're doing these kind of Romanesque pillars, and as you can see, they kind of print from the bottom up in this case. You kind of have to align when you're printing. There's something called support-free printing, where you don't have to add any supports, and supports are like little scaffolding systems that get built along with the print that the program generates, so that if you have like an overhang, because it's going layer by layer from the ground up, then it's not going to like droop off or print into nothing.
Yeah, like this. There's.
Oh yeah, there you go.
There you go. That's might be that exact one.
Yeah, it is. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
There you go.
Yeah, and then we printed this one the same way from the ground up, and then these two can sort of, once it's printed, turn over and lock together, or you can put them along the top. These are we call these scatter blocks. They're kind of designed for putting like a lot of terrain on the table really quickly. And let's see here. This is a very common print that we've
I think when Laurel put the picture into the presentation, it came up as suggested like old tree.
Yeah,
to me.
that's what it said. That's what
this is what a failure can look like. Sometimes you let the machine go overnight and you wake up and
it's
something like that.
It's one of my most common models. It's where I print a lot.
Yeah, these are some of Jeremy's robots he did pretty recently, and they're all designed to print without supports. Now, there's nothing wrong with printing with support systems.
No. And modern support structures
are really good,
amazing.
But you kind of have to have your printer dialed in, and removing supports is a big deal. So designing things for support-free printing is pretty popular, especially with people who just use FDM machines. You can do it on resin, but it's honestly, support removal on resin is not really that difficult.
No.
And over here we have, for no discernible reason, a 3D printed pine cone with some.
So we have a scanner. It's made by Einscan. It's the SE. And I because I scan weird stuff, and I really like the pine cones. And up above the pine cones we have some rock terrain that I scanned.
Yeah, we tend to kind of look for rocks whenever we get the opportunity that will scan well into something like wargaming or RPG terrain, if it's blown up. And these ones turned out pretty well.
And I mean, for scanning purposes, I also use my phone with like 3D Catch, or there's a couple of other phone apps that will let you scan a model, and the detail is okay for what you do. I scanned some statue lions. they came out fine.
Yeah, yeah. It's not quite there for scanning small scale things
No.
where you really need a lot of high detail, but it'll get there. And it's really cool.
I mean,
It's a cool tool to have in the box.
I bet I
mean,
can paint those pine cones and put them in there and nobody would know.
I bet that's true. Yeah. But we also might turn that pine cone into an alien tree or something.
It's true.
So, yeah.
And up in the top right, you see our little Anycubic over there.
Oh yeah, over here.
Next to the CR10.
That's another resin. Yep. Is that all of them? Yeah.
I think that's all of them.
Yeah. Except the one we have one prism
I mean,
here.
so the Anycubic works on a DLP, which is like an LCD screen, and it flashes light all in one layer, and you build it up all in one layer. Whereas the SLA machines work on a laser, which runs around the perimeter. Just two different ways of doing photosensitive resin.
Sure. Yeah. All right. So moving on, demonstration time. So I guess I'm going to go ahead.
It's all you.
Yeah. We'll open up a different. Let's see. How do I do this? New share, right? Yeah. All right. Is that working out there?
Oh yeah.
Okay. So this is Tinkercad. Like I said, this is a free program, and it's web based. And I've opened up kind of a work in progress bit. I've got a bunch of train pieces here. You can see some of the pieces that were in the pillars that we just showed you. And this is kind of where things take their rawest shape. Like you can see, let's see. I've kind of taken a regular cylinder, which you can just kind of pull from the objects to the side there. You can play with all kinds of aspects, like, you know, how detailed it is, how many sides the object has, and how tall it is, and you can kind of scale to your content. And the program works in millimeters and metric, which is really ideal. So you can tell, like, this is 11.85 millimeters around and 32 millimeters tall, right? It really helps to have physical versions, like reference points as you're designing something to know what that's going to kind of look like. Speaking of which, I actually have this is a sculpting dummy I use mostly for scaling, actually, just to kind of know, okay, if he's going to be walking under an arch, or this is like a standard size of a miniature. Like, if, you know, to put in the broadest terms, like if you were to take like a Warhammer miniature, or a Reaper, or you know, whatever popular miniature line you're using, this is kind of like the closest to all those scales.
Hence dubbed Sir Scalesby.
Sir Scalesby is what we call them, yeah. And I'll import into this program. So the nice thing about Tinkercad is you can take something that you made in like a more organic shape in another sculpting program like Zbrush, which I'll show in a second, and you can import it here. The importing into Tinkercad, it doesn't retain the best fidelity. Like, it tends to kind of decimate it, so you get these kind of jagged looking aspects to it, which is fine for, you know, something like terrain, but, you know, for a person, obviously not. But you can reduce the like I took this particular model, I reduced it enough so that it would come into here, and there we go. Now I've got this reference point that I can use every time I need to make something new. I generally will drop one of these into any plate where I'm designing buildings or vehicles or anything like that, or even other models in here. Robots is a good use for this kind of sculpting.
Scaling dummy available for people to use?
Yeah, actually, it is available on Thingiverse. So if you go to Thingiverse and you search Dutchmogul, you'll find, or Jeremy 8077, you'll find a whole bunch of designs. And so Scalesby, there's two versions on there. I did an updated, most recent one, which is this one here. Yeah, and this program, I can't stress how fast it is. I mean, you can just throw things together so quickly, and it comes built with all kinds of macros that let you really just speed up the workflow.
And being able to import your own primitives.
Yeah. Primitives are these basic shapes on the side. You know, you got your sphere, you got your cylinder, you got your box, basic stuff like that. But you can create something from like a head or something like that. You can then just import it into this and use it as you need to here.
Another thing that's cool, if I remember correctly from last time we did a presentation with this, was that Tinkercad, it follows you based on account. So you could be on any computer and be able to access your own stuff.
Yes,
As long as you
that's
remember
right.
your password. So you're
Yeah.
not loading a actual software program onto your machine and then, oh crumb, my computer crapped out and here I am wanting to work on that same model. This model is going to follow you in your Tinkercad account.
The downside to that is that you have to be online.
Correct.
But you know, there are definitely benefits to that as well. Yeah, so we do a lot of work in here, especially for things like the blocks, like terrain. But the other big program that we use is we were using Sculptris until pretty recently. Then we switched over to
Like a
Zbrush,
month ago.
and I'll kind of share that there. Okay, so this is Zbrush, and
What's his name?
I don't think he has a name quite yet, actually.
Suggestions in the chat.
Yeah, for sure. So this is he's sort of in like what you'd call it, it's close to a T-pose format here, you know, like if you're doing like a video game character. He hasn't been like posed yet or anything, but you can kind of see that he's made up of different subtools. So all these individual parts are manipulable. So I can kind of draw on them or do any of these tools that come with the program.
So all of those tools, that is one of the distinct advantages that ZBrush has over, like, say, Sculptris.
It has a lot of tools and brushes. Brushes are like what are going to kind of like apply the texture to these objects. Yeah, and it's actually pretty easy to use once you get past. Sculptris was a little easier to get into because it's just literally like here's a ball of clay.
Yeah.
Here's a few, just a handful of tools, and you can stretch it and do what you like with it. ZBrush, it was a little bit of a learning curve, but you know what, we sat down for an hour and a half or two, honestly, and we got a hang of it pretty good. The hang of it pretty quickly.
After about a week, I think I did my first model in just ZBrush.
Yeah, and it's pretty awesome. It's the advantages that this has to something like Sculptris is that, you know, you're gonna be able to get a higher triangle count, and that's like the detail level essentially.
Well, and you can do your renders in ZBrush.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, ZBrush is great for rendering. Yeah.
So
rendering is when you want to take a 3D photo of your object. So when you're promoting something, when you're like selling an object, posting a miniature for sale, for example, you want to have like a really good 3D render, just a picture of the 3D model, and you can get that from a lot of programs that you're working in, but it's not going to be terribly.
So we got a question in the chat that says, how long does it take to print a figure? It depends on a bunch of things, like the resolution and whether I'm going FDM or resin. Usually in resin, I'll print at 50 microns. I can print at 25, but I like to print at 50 because it's a little bit faster. And a standard Wargaming Mini on a Formlabs machine will take about an hour and a half to 3 hours, depending. And actually FDM, if I'm doing a miniature on FDM, it takes about the same amount of time because I have to use a super high detailed profile, which has a lot of infill, which then makes it, you know, it extends the time that it'll print. But, you know, if I wanted to just like quick bang one out to see, like, is this the right scale? Am I going in the right direction? FDM wise, I can print out a mini in like half an hour.
Well, yeah. And the nice thing about the resin though, right? If you're doing multiples at once, it doesn't really take all that much more time.
No,
right?
not really.
Yeah.
Well, especially if you're going DLP. If you're going SLA, it takes a little longer.
SLA would be like the photon.
The SLA is the Formlabs machines.
Oh, SLA. Okay.
Yeah, the DLP, which is the LCD screen, because it flashes the whole layer at once. So whether the plate is full or only has one thing on it, it's about the same.
Yeah. So you know, it's just more cost efficient, especially because resin is, you know, fairly expensive compared to plastic filament like PLA filament for FDM machines. It's kind of good to line up a whole bunch of stuff at once. Yeah.
We got another chat question that says, how much material does it take to print a model FDM? And what's that?
I said that's just me prompting you.
Oh, so if you can imagine how light a a miniature would be. That's how much material it takes. So FDM usually comes in spools like so. This is a very beautiful color. It starts out like, I don't know if you can see that at all, but this is a 1.75 millimeter, which is, there's sort of two standards. And it's a PLA plastic, which is plant-derived plastic.
Corn, right?
Usually,
Is usually.
but all kinds of stuff. Anyway, yeah, I mean it's like pennies. I would say how much it costs.
In FDM, yeah. I mean, how many like standard miniatures? Let me grab one.
I don't know. I mean, I could probably get.
Let's see.
More than 100, I would say.
Where's the model?
You know, providing that they don't fail.
Demon with a pitchfork there.
I mean,
this guy, how many? That's a pretty standard miniature size. You know, he's here. Here he is with an SLA Viking.
You know, it's you get a very lot. Is what I'm saying.
Yeah, I don't know how many. Hundreds.
Hundreds, probably.
I'm sure hundreds.
Depending on how much it fails.
Yeah, exactly.
No, it does not.
The resin, like the Formlabs resin, is $150 for one container. So you know, I weigh that out a little bit. It's like, do I really want this model?
How many models can we get out of one of those bottles?
So that
one out of one bottle of resin, lots and lots.
Sorry, I'm bouncing around because we're in one room, and so we get an echo, and so that's why some of the questions have been in the chat. So you can see here that Arian is very efficient time-wise with this, and so I mean this is going from this weird sort of streamlined creature to one that's obviously been in a little bit of a maybe his.
I'm just sort of messing around with it.
This creature's ship crashed when it landed on our planet or something.
Battle damaging his mental helmet.
Yep.
That bit on his computer attachment helmet dealie. That's where you could use the remesher.
Oh, right here.
Yeah.
Something I generally will use smoothing tools for within this program, or like in Blender. You know, once I'll do oftentimes I'll import objects into Blender just to kind of join them. So if you look at this model. Right now, all of his stuff is in different parts. You have his torso, his upper torso here. You've got his shoulder. You've got his bicep. You got his forearm. But there's all these seams where they meet. So, but after I pose these objects and get them into place, I like to bring them. I haven't figured out how to do it in Zbrush yet. I know you can really easily, but Blender's one I'll use. I'll import it into there, and I'll kind of just smooth them together with one smooth tool in there. So I really use a lot of programs. 3D Builder is the other big one, which we haven't mentioned.
Oh, right.
Yeah, talk about that a little time.
Yes, 3D Builder. If you have Windows 10, you have access to. They used to put it native on all Windows 10 machines, but now you have to go to the App Store and download it.
Oh, is that right?
Yeah, but it's
But it's included. It's free.
Yeah, it's free. It's incredibly powerful we use it for cleaning models. We use it for staging the models. We use it for splitting models.
Yeah, it's called booleans. Basically where you want to subtract one model, one shape from another shape, or cut something in half.
And it doesn't decimate it, which is
it's really good. It's really good at that. And it's free and it's fast, and you can get away with really a lot. Just in that program. It's especially good for if you wanted to take, and I wouldn't advise this if you're distributing them or anything, but if you want to take any models in your collection, you want to chop them apart and do a Frankenstein's workshop kind of thing with them.
That's the one.
Like miniature conversion, if you're familiar with that, where you would take different Space Marine parts and put them together.
And then take that and put it in a blender and smooth them out. Yeah,
exactly. So really with Blender and 3D Builder and just a bunch of STL files, you could come up with a lot of your own stuff. Yeah.
Okay, so how do you take this model that you're creating right here and get it to the printer? How does that process work?
So once it's finished, I'll export it and clean it up, like I said, in another program. But once it's finalized, that's pretty much it. I'll send it to Jeremy and he prints it.
So I take usually an STL or 3MF, and I'll put it into what's called a slicing program. And the slicing program is what tells the printer how to move and how much exposure to give it or how much plastic to put down and where to put it down. And after it's done slicing, I send it to the printer and push print and walk away like a boss.
Yeah. It's it's also not too difficult once you.
When Addie was in both in preschool and in first grade, we brought one of our MakerBot replicators into the classrooms, and seeing kids look at those machines and realize that that is a version of a robot, and it's a version of a robot that we have, and they can see and they can touch and they can smell the plastic melting and creating. It was pretty amazing, and it's also really fun back pre-pandemic times when we would do maker events and things like that, and have people who were completely unfamiliar with 3D printing come up and just watch. There's if you YouTube it, I don't think we have any on our YouTube channel, but there's time lapse videos of 3D printers at work, especially the FDM printers, because you can actually see things being created. And for big prints, it is so cool to watch these machines literally be a computer programmed a hot glue gun, essentially, right? They're melting this plastic, and yeah.
So a question in the chat says, when preparing models for painting, how does FDM differ from resin
It's a
prints?
really good question.
That's a really good question.
Addie asked a question as well.
Oh, well, let's answer this one
Yeah.
first.
Yeah.
We actually don't. There's no difference between how we prep our models, FDM and resin.
Yeah, here's the thing. Either way, we print in black material.
Yeah.
So when you're going to paint something in FDM, I mean, it's different because it's got the layer lines and everything. So you're gonna, sometimes you can use that to your advantage, especially if it's like a natural structure like stone or
wood.
It can really take to like a dry brushing process. But we actually don't prime anything anymore. We used to, because I've been painting miniatures since I was 12, and we always used spray primer, and we do still here and there, but for the things we print, we really don't. We either print it in black PLA like this thing right here, or
FDM.
that's
print?
FDM. It's one of your It's
I'm pretty good at that.
It's pretty good, yeah. Or black resin, in which case you can see like the people eater here. Oops, it's gone to there we go. If you look at his feet at the bottom of the acrylic base there, you can see that it's just this black material. Paints these days, model paints, like whether you're using Games Workshop like Citadel or Reaper or whatever,
Vallejo.
they're all really high pigment count, so you can print directly onto a black surface, and that really cuts away a lot of the painting that you have to do, the sort of laborious stuff where you have to get all the nooks and crannies, because we used to prime things white, and because that would show the color the best, but you really had to, like, once you got to the hand brush, you really
total
had to, like,
coverage.
Yeah, but so we basically just go right onto the black surface, and it's like it's already been primed, and
There's two more questions. One of them is, how long does it take you to design a model?
Very different answers for the two of you. I know this.
Well, for me to design a mini is about 4 or 5 hours. For Arian, it's like 10 minutes.
Well, it depends on what I'm making, but I mean, concept to finished product, I would say on average maybe an hour and a half.
So the other question is, are there any special tools that help with painting?
Nothing different from.
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah, flush cutters.
Yeah.
A good pair of flush cutters are going to be handy for removing supports.
And good brushes, and a couple of different. Like, I only use maybe three different size brushes. I use a tank brush, a 2, and then
I think other than just something to accommodate for the supports. So a good like X-Acto knife and flush cutters, which you're probably using with traditional miniatures anyway that you're buying if you want to remove flash lines or cut them out of sprues. So it's really no different. Yeah, you pretty much if you're equipped to put together plastic models and paint them, then in the standard way, then you've got everything you need for 3D printing.
I need glasses nowadays, but
That's new.
let's see. How many hours does it take to print one of those small figures versus the larger pieces?
Yeah.
So typically, if I'm really on my printing game, I'll print I'll print a whole bunch of pieces at once. But if I want one really good
Are you talking about FDM or
FDM, I don't know what happened.
Oh,
here.
sorry,
Yeah.
that's my.
It's
Goes
ZBrush.
into that like a bunch of-
So like to print this guy here, which is an FDM print, I usually use what I call a cooling tower, which is just something that sits next to it, which is taller, so it gives the nozzle time or it gives the plastic time to cool down before it then starts adding more. That's probably about an hour print, I would say, versus like a giant or something like that, which is, that tall and that wide. Giant will probably take 5 or 6 hours to print FDM. For resin, I mean, like
a giant.
like a giant. Like this is probably a 12-hour resin print, and it would probably be about an 8-hour FDM print, maybe 8 to 10 hours FDM.
Can I clarify something with the resin time on that resin print? So if that's 8-hour, you said resin print? Ish, 10 hours maybe.
So
does that include actual print time, or does that also include the curing time and the wash time? Because there's additional steps that have to take place with the resin print and the FDM, right?
That's probably just printing. Yeah. So after a resin print, you have to put it into an alcohol wash, and that takes 20 minutes, half hour. And then you have to put it into a UV cure station, which can be anywhere. It depends on your station. Can be anywhere from, a few minutes to, 40 minutes. Or if it's a nice sunny day, you can put them out in the sun.
We don't have a lot of those here.
Yeah, no. We're in the Northwest.
Yeah.
Hey guys, I want to just jump back in and make sure I got to ask a couple questions that I'd love to know the answers to from you. And first of all, I just want to say I have always been so impressed with your Tinkercad work. I know at the library, that's one of the first things that we teach. A lot of schools teach that. And I think not a lot of people really know the power that the program has, and seeing your work is so impressive to see how much can really get done in there.
Oh, thank you. Yeah. It is a powerful program. I mean, it's and it's so easy to use. I'm a big fan of Tinkercad. Yeah. Use it every day.
I'd love to see it. So I got a couple questions for you guys. Do you have any upcoming projects you're excited about that you'd like to tell us about?
Yeah, we're working on our second series of Walhalla, which are our 3D printable shelving units. Okay, yeah, Jeremy's gonna grab one. They're basically, imagine like little bits of castles and dungeons and forests and things like that are designed just to display miniatures on the wall. So here we have that's like the Viking longhouse model, but it's all in components. So you can see it's kind of assembled in different bits, and you can kind of assemble it however you want. And it can go up, down, over, and that's one of our more popular objects. And so we've decided, it's been a couple of years since we did that last one, so I think we're going to be doing that next. And the big thing we're attempting to tackle with it right now is making it into a playable dungeon, which actually can sprawl on the wall. So it's not just a shelf unit, but also something that looks like a side-scroller video game, sort of like Castlevania or whatever.
That's really cool.
I was thinking about it, and it occurred to me, so a lot of games sort of say you need a 3x3 or a 4x4 chunk of table. Well, that's kind of a big table, really, and but everybody's got that big chunk of wall.
That's true. Yeah.
Hence the Walhalla to begin with, and so to actually create a usable space instead of just a display space is pretty exciting.
Yeah, that's awesome. And it would clear up my dining room table a lot, which would be probably very thing.
And it would help solve the cat problem.
Yep.
I do think a lot of this, the makerspace and working with makers, a lot of it is networking. Do you guys have any designers that we should all know about and watch for?
Oh boy. Let's see. We work with a lot of different people.
Oh yeah.
So JC Fairclough from Red Nebular is a good friend and really good designer.
And this is a Max Morel.
Max Morel is a friend of ours out of France who does some pieces for us. Sable Badger, a friend of ours who runs his own Patreon as well. He does a lot of terrain stuff.
And he's
which is nice.
And he's almost exclusively Tinkercad.
I think so. Yeah, largely. Yeah.
He does a lot of Frostgrave stuff for people who play Frostgrave.
Yeah, games like
Gaslands.
games like that, Gaslands, stuff like that. Yeah, I mean, I'm gonna drop links because there's a lot of them.
There's
pressure's on. I would say to follow Dutchmogul and follow Ill-Gotten Games on Instagram, because we definitely are. The Ill-Gotten Games Instagram is fairly new, but Dutchmogul's is not.
Yeah.
Arian's is not, and
Oh, and I
we
network
have
with a lot of people there,
lot
so
of
you can
artists and-
when we work with somebody or we just want to kind of promote their stuff, I'll generally
we'll tag them.
close this.
So I do have a question. Do prints always show the details as in the render? The answer is no.
No, not always. No.
That was an
no.
added question.
Yeah. That was Addie's?
Yeah.
That was a great question.
That's a really good question. Yeah.
But with the Formlabs machines, it's pretty close.
Yeah, honestly, it's pretty much close enough. I mean, so if you're doing using a resin machine, especially a higher end resin machine, you're going to get close to what you see in the model for sure. And honestly, like the difference between that and what you see on the table it's not going to be perceptible to you or most people, to be honest. Yeah.
Chris, what kind
I
of?
got one more for you. I know we're coming up on time, but
Okay.
I'd love to know what you guys think. As a group that makes your own board games, you're so into the gaming community. What are some of your favorite games to play when you're not making your own?
Oh wait,
boy.
Bonanza.
Yeah, Bonanza has been on our dining room table for the last 3 weeks because we played it every night during dinner, whether Arian's at the house or not. We're playing Bonanza.
Yeah.
Are you familiar with this, Chris?
I'm not. No.
Bohn Anza, ANCA, and it is a negotiation, trading, and planting game with beans. And it is super fun, and Adeline generally kicks our butts with it.
Yeah.
And we will be taking her next time we need to buy a card, because apparently she's a great negotiator. So
Yeah, that's great. Dominion is another
Dominion's another
card game that we play quite a bit. Carcassonne, obviously, and
Mhm.
Settlers of Catan, like everybody plays those.
Oh, Uno. Yep.
Uno.
That's a good one.
Yeah, it's a good one. Yeah, that's right.
Mhm.
All right, well, I think
Yeah.
I'm gonna. Oh, go ahead. Yeah.
No, that's good.
I was gonna say, I think I'm gonna call back Megan here to read us out. But I just want to say thank you guys again so much for being here.
Yeah,
We
absolutely.
really appreciate your work, all the contribution you've given to the 3D printing maker community is terrific, and really appreciate having you with us today.
Appreciate that.
Thank you very much.
And thanks for working late. This is barely evening on our side of the country.
Yeah,
I know you
yeah.
guys are
Anytime.
doing this late, so appreciate that.
Yes. Well, Chris did a better thank you than I had planned. So thank you. And thank you everyone for joining us tonight. So that you know, our next presenter in the Meet the Maker series is Matt Maldonado. Currently works for Universal Studios and has done work with Disney before. And he will be joining us on Tuesday, May 25th at 7 o'clock. So if you're interested, sign up. It'll be great. But other than that, it's been fun. I learned a lot about 3D printing. And I don't know how you have patience for it, but it looks really cool. But thank you so much for sharing your craft. It's been great.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah,
Anytime.
thanks for having us.